Hey guys, this is Coach Keita Bussey with 180 Firearms Training. Today we have Grant Chancellor Madison, Corey Scheel, and Mike Seifert. Welcome to the 180 Firearms Training Podcast. So Corey, tell us about yourself.
So I'm Corey Scheel. I own Scheel Manufacturing, which is really just kind of one product, this buffer system I developed for PCCs. I shoot USPSA PCC primarily. I'm a GM, just got my GM classification this past summer. I shoot open when I can and 3-gun when I can. And yeah, I don't know. I've been going down this kind of road of this entrepreneurship, developing this PCC and trying to sell it and sponsor matches and shooters and get it out there. So that's kind of where I'm at now.
Okay, so
Nice work, Corey.
Okay, so for people who don't know, can you tell us what is a buffer system for a PCC?
Okay, so I've got my PCC here. So a typical AR9 is being, the whole bolt and everything is being held forward by a big spring in the tube and generally a weight, a heavy weight. And, you know, it's just hard to get a weight moving. So when the round goes off, it's hard to get that moving. But once it moves, it's pushing this heavy spring back, ejects. Then that heavy spring starts pushing this heavy weight forward. It shucks around off the magazine and goes home. So traditional buffers are generally in like the 10-ounce area, and they're running like a 15-pound spring behind it. And what I did was I went to the idea where we can have these detents, these rollers that are kind of catching on these pockets, and that is what's holding it shut. And then all of a sudden it releases, and I'm on a 5-pound spring then.
So are you basically creating a delayed blowback MP5 type system in the buffer tube?
Yes, exactly. And it turned out to be a really good thing in that it could add on to anyone's gun. But when I developed it, I just said, what's the cheapest thing that I can cut? And so I didn't want to start cutting on my bolt and my receiver. So I was like, oh, I've got this buffer tube and I'll start working on that.
Is it very ammo dependent though?
It is completely tunable to your ammo. So that's one of the really cool things is inside the buffer, I'm just using springs to create the spring pressure. And there's 3 pockets and different strengths of springs. So there's like 100 different combinations of lockup. So you can tune your lockup to your specific ammo to make the gun feel right for you.
So what recommendations do you have for various ammunition?
Oh, well, you know, the snappy 115 grain factory loads, we tend to run more heavy springs in here and lock it up harder. Like the Steel Challenge stuff, we can run 1 light spring in here and barely lock this up. So there's really a wide gamut there. That is one thing in the Steel Challenge stuff. I've got some combinations that can run ammo as low as 65, 70 power factor. Wow. So stuff that's like unheard of and completely unreliable in other guns, right, just runs great out of this. So I haven't gone down that Steel Challenge path yet with it, but I feel like there's a lot to be gained there with it.
Okay.
So is it also because a lot of guys run the short stroke kind of stuff? Now I'm not a PCC shooter, Mike, so correct me if I'm wrong. Now, have you simulated that kind of throw and travel in your product?
Yes, so I also have like short stroke bumpers that go in the back of the tube that will limit the stroke. I've tried the short stroke thing before my system and with it, and I like the full length stroke. I'm kind of the engineering thinker in me says, okay, if I'm stopping my car it's going to be less violent if I stop it over 100 feet than if I stop it over 50 feet from going the same distance, traveling same speed. So my thought is that's going to be softer on a long stroke, but certainly lots of people like the short stroke idea, and you can do that with this system too.
And it's patented, right?
Yes, I went through that process last spring and did the whole, provisional patent thing and went through the patent process. So yes.
Well, that could be interesting for our listeners. Can you talk us through the patent process in case somebody who's listening has an idea they're thinking of getting patented?
So, you start with doing like a provisional patent, which is basically locks your idea up for a year, and it sets that date for you. So it's like I had the idea on
a deadline,
April 1st. But I don't have everything in line to actually file the patent, spend the big money and all of that. But it locks that date in for you as April 1st. So you can send some like photos and stuff that they won't accept for an actual patent to them and say, here's the idea, here's some like real general stuff about it. It's only a few pages, and hold this date for me. And so I did that. And then I started talking to lawyers, and a lot of that is all how you've got to decide how deep you want your patent to cover. Do you want to cover every little part? Do you want to just cover the general idea? And how much money are you willing to spend? It's really the lawyers, they want you to lock everything up and spend thousands of hours on it. And,
of course.
So you've got to make a call there on how hard you want to go. You want to go to other countries. I kind of learned with the firearms industry, there aren't many manufacturers in other countries that can make a go of it without selling into the United States. So if I have it covered here in the United States, generally someone in Europe isn't going to start making them and selling them because there's not a big enough market without selling into the US.
Yeah, we have the biggest gun market for sure.
So that's about what I learned there. But yeah, the patent process was interesting.
So where do you go? Is there a website you go to start the process?
So the provisional patents thing, I think I just did on one of these like 1-800-patent websites, or kind of whatever the top thing was on Google. But then I actually have a friend in the firearms industry that his brothers are patent lawyers, mostly in electronic stuff. So I was able to talk with them and get some advice on where to go and what to do. And so that worked out really good.
Okay. So what do you think is the minimum you would have to spend to get a patent? Just something really general.
That, the 15 to 20 is a pretty solid number.
1,500 or 15,000?
1,000.
Okay.
Yes. To be completely patent protected, that's the numbers that I was given by the lawyer. Now I did a lot of the work myself, and so I was able to save some of that, but that's the numbers I was quoted by them.
So you were really invested in this upfront, and you had to buy a CNC machine as well, and those are not cheap. Even the old ones are not cheap.
I didn't have to, but I was just spending a lot on machining. I was farming it out, and I've got manual machines that I kind of, you got to turn the handles and crank stuff, and you get 15 hours into a part, and you turn the knob the wrong way, and you wreck the whole part. So that's how I prototyped everything. But no, I decided that going in-house is probably the right move. That also opens me up. I can make minor tweaks. I don't have to buy parts, 500 parts at a time. And then when I decide I want to change something, scrap a bunch of parts, I can make them kind of, 20, 50 at a time. If I tweak an idea, I can try it without having to really commit to large runs of parts.
So
and then
tell us.
No, that's fine.
Sorry.
No.
Tell us about the machine sitting behind you.
Oh yeah, so I just bought this. It's a vertical machining center. It's a Pedal. It's like a year 2000. So it's like It's old. I'm just trying to learn it. I don't. It's like MS-DOS versus Windows. Like you talk to it in code, and so there's a lot to learn. Trying to get it to talk to my computer, it isn't even communicating with the computer yet. So everything I have to do, I have to like enter on this old keyboard, which some of the keys you have to push harder than others, and with 1 decimal is out of place, the whole thing's wrong. But I'm just kind of learning it. This has only been here for a couple months, and
okay. Well,
I can have my work on it.
The
So you're only
CNC
manufacturing
machining.
your buffers, right?
That's the idea. Yes. I'm still, I still have some parts from when I had the machining farmed out. I do all the assembly and everything in house, but just actually having the parts made. But yeah, that's the idea. It's just for buffers and any new ideas.
Okay, what are the new ideas that you have cooking in your head? Come on, 80% lowers, let's do it.
I've stayed away from the 80% stuff. I don't even have any of the 80% stuff personally. It's easy to have serial numbers on something and not have to worry about these gray areas of the law that seem to be changing all the time. If you can't even pass an 80% on to your kids. So I don't have any kids, but it's like if I were to die and my sister were to take all my guns, she'd be committing a felony without even knowing it. So like, I don't want to do that. I'm not against them. I think if they're right for you, that's great. It's a hassle that I'm not going to deal with right now.
So it's interesting how CNC machining has really been farmed out to mostly China. So a lot of people aren't even using them anymore in the US. It's so much cheaper to just have them do it there and pay them this horrendously low rate.
Right.
So that's interesting that you bought one for yourself and you're doing it all on your own. And who knows what's going to happen with the way the world is right now. You're probably kind of glad you have it for yourself.
Absolutely. Yes. And even in CNC machines, they're all being built in China too. So now if you want to have a machine shop, you're ordering your machine from China.
Right.
So I was glad this is one of the last ones that were built in California. So that was something I was looking for, was a made in USA machine.
USA.
But yeah, that is absolutely the truth. It's being farmed overseas more and more every day.
Yeah, I really see CNC machining being sort of a dying thing in the US where people just aren't really doing it anymore. It's so much cheaper to outsource.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of the US stuff now they're selling that we can turn around in 2 days and have your rapid prototype in your hands back to you quickly.
So is everything you make US made?
Yes. I'm trying to think of, there's some roller bearings at the end of the arm, and those are made overseas. There aren't bearings made in the US that will work for this. They're for like a remote control car. So I think they're made in Taiwan, China.
I was going to say probably Japan, remote control cars. Yeah,
there are some German ones, but actually they're a harder material, and that's going to work out. That's not going to work for me. So,
well, yeah, because then it damages other things.
Right.
Rather than having the replaceable part, taking the damage is better.
Well, and harder is more brittle. So you're trading off. You're probably going to have less shock resistance and more likely to have like a crack if it's a really hard material.
Right. Mike, you've been pretty quiet.
Sorry, I don't want to actually run my.
I'm letting you guys kind of talk about Corey's business stuff. I mean, so for the viewers out there, I've known Corey for a few years now. So I've known Corey since before he started his Scheel MFG buffer system company. And we always shot together and had a great time. He's been shooting BCC, I've been shooting BCC, and so Corey kind of came to me one day and was like, "Hey, dude, this is kind of what I made, and we've been testing it out, and it seems like it works." And I remember it was Ohio State. It was the Buckeye Blast last year, actually. And it was that weekend that I was going to go there and shoot with Corey. And he's like, "I want you to, just try out my buffer system, see what you think about it." And so we went to the range, and pretty sure he threw it on my gun and we fired what, about 100 rounds of mixed stuff. We had some factory stuff. I used my ammo. I used his ammo that was soft. So we had a whole mix of stuff. And I mean, the thing ran perfectly. And for me, what I really liked about it was I was running a JP buffer before that, which I think a lot of people is what they're coming from. Or, you know, I know some people that actually have come from a hydraulic buffer to Corey system and they like it more. The thing I like about it more is for me, it takes away the felt impulse on your shoulder when you're actually shooting. So like, you know, what Corey was talking about at the beginning, where, you know, usually you're running a very heavy, like a 10-ounce thing with the 15-pound buffer or whatever it may be. And his system is running something that's very light with a lot less spring. I feel like when you shoot and you have the blowback on and you put Corey's system on, I feel like it doesn't feel like it's hitting you as hard in the shoulder. So it feels noticeably softer. And for me, that kind of settles the dot down too a little bit. But I just thought it was funny that, you know, Corey, after shooting the 100 rounds, whatever we did, I was like, all right, sweet, I'm going to shoot it tomorrow, because this was the day before a major. He's like, what? You're going to run it this weekend? Like, yeah, I mean, you know, what's the worst that happens? It breaks. Like, well, I mean, it's just one major, right? So we'll get it done. And then I ended up going out there and crushing that match. I took third overall and I took first PCC. And just, you know, ever since then, I've been shooting this Scheel buffer, and I love it. And it's so cool for me because, you know, it's such a new thing that it's getting more and more known out there. You know, almost every week, more and more people have heard about this roller buffer, but there's still a lot of people out there that are just like, what is that thing that you have on your gun? It's like they just see the holes cut in the thing and, like, you know, the little roller sticking out, and it's like, you know, it's fun to try to explain the system to them. And most every person I talk to thinks it's the smartest thing, which was kind of my impression when Corey told me about it. I was like, that's really, really smart. So you're essentially making a roller delay system that you can just drop into any blowback gun and turn it into a roller system kind of. And you know, for me, I've loved it. I'm running 3 light springs for anybody that wants to know, but I'm also running 124 grain bullets at 138 power factor. So somewhere around 1,080 feet a second. But that seems to be what works for me. And yeah, nothing but good things to say about it. And I mean, you know, the fact that Corey was my buddy before he started this whole thing, you know, it just, you know, made it even that much better. I tell him all the time, like, you know, like, even if it sucked, you know, I'd still run it because I love you. But, you know, the fact that it's awesome is just like a bonus, you know, like the thing is actually, it's a really good buffer. I mean, you know, we've had a lot of people shoot the thing and say, wow, like it's a noticeable difference in the feel on your rifle, which is, you know, it's innovative. And if it's, I personally, for me, I mean, you know, I am sponsored by Corey and we're buddies, but, you know, for me, I tell everybody that they should at least get one and throw it on one of their guns to check it out, because I think it's a great system and it's super innovative. But that's what I had to say. So yeah, I was just letting y'all talk, but I was just thinking about, you know, as Corey's sitting here with a CNC machine in the background and his Scheel MFG, you know, jersey on and his hat that he's got, which, by the way, I love this hat also. You guys can buy this on the website. You know, I'm just thinking about, like, you know, I knew Corey years back and before all this, and it's just really cool to see where he's come. So I'm kind of proud of the dude. But
what's the website?
ScheelMFG.com.
All right.
MFG is for manufacturing, not MF guns.
you know, that's
so
good.
there are a lot of PCCs that will not run if you don't have them locked tight into your body. If you don't have that buttstock pulled in tight, they won't run at all. Do you think your buffering system helps with that?
You know, yes, for sure.
Long answer short, yes.
You know, I used to get a lot of, you know, PCC stock on belt, and sometimes there's a target right in front of you.
Exactly.
And so you'll be pulling the trigger on the way into your shoulder. And sometimes I get doubles that way and was trying to do that, but it wasn't reliable enough to do it. That was before the system. But no, I haven't had any of that happen. It's kind of always none of that trigger freeze or false start stuff. It kind of just, it's a smooth, it just feels smoother to me.
Okay.
It's a slower, if you watch, I've got a side charger on my Davinci, and you can watch the bolt, you know, the handle moving, and it seems like it's just slower than other guns are running. I don't know.
Yeah,
right. So you're running Davinci as well. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, so that came through Mike, actually. When I first developed the buffer, I was like, hey, you know, Mike was shooting a JP at the time, I think, and I said, hey, let's you know, we should put this on. And he's like, oh, absolutely, you know, that'd be cool. And then a day later, he's like, hey, I don't know if we can do this. I'm switching to Davinci, and they want me to run their gun the way it comes, you know, from them. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. You know, good for you. Awesome. Congratulations. So, you know, move forward a month or so, and Davinci's like, hey, we want to check out this buffer system too. Why don't you put it on Mike's gun? And so that got the ball rolling with that. And it was a couple months later, you know, it kind of coincided. I got my GM card. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it or not. But all of a sudden I was GM and they're asking me if I want to shoot for them.
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, I made the introduction because Corey had taken, you know, I was shooting a JP, which obviously had a JP buffer in it. And Corey took out the JP buffer and put on his system, which I like more. And then when I came to Davinci, they had put a JP buffer in my gun, which is what they were originally doing. And now, you know, I'm like, I just kept thinking about Corey's buffer. So I'm like, well, you know, I kind of, yeah.
Like in a sexual way?
Yeah, well, I just asked the owner of Davinci. I was like, hey man, you know, would you be, I know it's not what comes with your guns, but like, would you be okay if I ran a Scheel MFG buffer? He's my buddy from Ohio. He just made this thing, and I honestly like it more than the JP. And he was like, oh, well, if you like it more than the JP, let's see if, you know, maybe it's something that we could offer in our guns on the website. So like, you know, it was more or less, I was just asking permission if I could run one on my gun. Turned into David was interested in having Corey supply buffers for anybody that wanted them as an option, you know, for people to buy on the website, which I thought was very cool for Corey, and Corey thought was awesome too. And, you know, I mean, that's all I did. I didn't do anything more than that. And then from there, Corey kind of took over, and him and David are doing their own thing. And I try to stay out of the middle as much as possible. So I feel like I introduced him. I got to shoot Corey's buffer. I'm a happy guy. And then, you know, it's great for Corey too, because now I feel like, you know, anytime that you really go and see a Davinci tent, usually you'll see a Scheel MFG table right at the end of the Davinci tent. So I feel like it's almost a buffer that they're pushing, because I feel like David also likes it. And, you know, it's easy to see. I mean, you pick one up and you shoot it, and you can see the value in it. You could instantly feel the difference. So it's, you know, it's nice for me, and you know, it's kind of an easy sell, and it's so innovative that people are interested in it. So, you know.
So what is the difference between the JP buffer system and your buffer system?
The weight, the complexity, no rubber. I mean, sorry, go ahead, Corey. I can go through them now. I mean, I think it's so much better all around.
You know, the JP system is just like, it's their silent captured system that they've modified for PCCs by adding a few weights to it. So you just got more spring pressure and more weight. And that's what I was trying to get away with. I kind of went down this road. I was playing with my open gun, trying to get it tuned better. And people with open guns will put a really heavy hammer spring in, a main spring, and lighten the recoil spring. And I've talked to a lot of guys, and they say all the recoil spring is there for is all it has to do is overcome and get the round out of the magazine and get it home. Any more than that, and you're going to get muzzle dip.
Mm-hmm.
And so I sort of took this to the PCC and said, how can I want it to be locked up hard, and then I want it to cock the hammer hard. So I started playing with springs on the actual hammer. Said maybe I can hold it closed with the hammer. And that got me, just kind of got the ball rolling in my mind. I still think there's something to be said about the Hyperfire triggers and how they are holding the bolt closed with the hammer. They're actually making your gun softer, and you know, people don't realize that. I'm not sponsored by Hyperfire or anything like that, but there is something there.
We were just talking about the Hyperfire triggers on our last podcast. I think all of us kind of dig the Hyperfire trigger.
I think, yeah. I mean, I've been running a Hyperfire trigger since I started shooting PCC. Well, I started with a Timney, but that only lasted about 6 months, and then I bought a 24C. And I was running that, and then all of a sudden with the Davinci's, Dave asked, he's like, well, do you want an Eclipse in it? And I mean, my God, that Eclipse trigger is so nice. So, and you know, we talked to Brian on the last podcast. He's running an Eclipse in his MPX. I just think that Hyperfire is doing something right, you know, and something better than most of the other trigger companies. I mean, it seems to be the predominant trigger that you see out there, except for JP with their roller delay or roller trigger, whatever they have. I mean, when I had my JP, that trigger was in there. I tried to get it out. I think they red Loctite their trigger in. So, you know, barring you taking it somewhere or, you know, heating up your new gun, like, you know, if you could drop a Hyperfire in your gun, I highly suggest that. You know, it's too bad. Do they make pistol? Like, I don't even know. I'm just a PCC guy. Do they make pistol triggers or anything like that? Like, they should get into the world.
Sure, they make a Glock trigger or something.
Yeah, I mean, they should if they don't. I mean, and I wish I knew more about it. I'm not sponsored by Hyperfire either, but their triggers are dynamite.
Yeah,
Really
I'm not
good.
sponsored by them either, but I like them as well.
Yeah. So thanks, Hyperfire, for being you.
It's a superior
Hyperfire, if you're
design.
listening.
Like if you're into the engineering of things and all that, and actually look at it, it's like, okay, it's a superior design. It makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I mean, your thing is interesting because most of the like JP with their new, what is it, their JP5 or something? It's like it's the roller delayed, but in the front, like an MP5. All of the, I mean, if you're giving some police officer in Europe a 9mm carbine, I mean, a blowback's fine for them, but you guys want to run the guns faster. So most of the guys are trying to get it somehow delayed. And that's where that's where the speed is. So, and that's where the lighter recoil is. So that, I mean, you're doing that on the back end.
3,500 on a JP5 or whatever it is, or would you rather buy Corey's system and then
I can guarantee you that
your blowback gun you already have
2 to get it here in South Africa, or 3 actually, because it's a thing. Like, no, I'm not spending 10 grand on a JP5 in South Africa, but I mean, a buffer system for an already owned PCC, and also some of the things you must remember, because Americans are awesome, is we have to license guns pretty much here in Europe and that. So if you already have a blowback 9mm PCC that you want to make better, by just slapping on the buffer, which is a non-controlled part, you've already made it kind of like what you're competing against, which is what I find fascinating about it.
Yep, that's.
I mean, I want to dig on the JP5. It's you know, JP builds great guns.
They do.
I've converted a lot of their GMR 13s and 15s to roller delayed this way, and that makes a fantastic gun too.
There you go. That's how you do that.
So we're not talking about reciprocating mass in your buffer. We're talking about overall weight and where you have it. So I could take Corey's system and put it on a PRS stock, and a PRS stock is like, you know, 4 pounds. It feels that way anyway. So it's like, you know, that I think Josh likes a heavy gun. I don't know if, I think it's different though. Now Josh isn't going to be changing his gun because he's running JP. They're not going to let him run anything other than a JP buffer. But what I'm saying
and
is,
he likes it.
Saying a heavy gun, my teammate Craig actually, he has it almost looks like literal weights. They look like plates that he attaches to the buttstock of his gun. So he could run Corey's buffer and it'll feel lighter when it's shooting and still have the overall weight by just adding it to other places. So when you're talking about weight, and you know, I think Corey can back me up on this, is weight is not something that you want in your buffer system if you're looking, you know, especially for Corey's system. That was the whole point of that, was lightening it all up and making that better. So, you know, I mean, really, if you wanted to add the extra weight that you're losing off of the JP buffer, you could throw in a couple lead weights somewhere else and call it a day. You know, I don't know, but
well, right, reciprocating weight versus the weight of your gun, those are two completely different things. Yeah,
I think we should talk about that though.
Yeah, I put weight in my stock. I have, you know, I run this stock, like SOP mod stock that has these battery compartments, and they're full of lead bullets and earplugs to keep them from rattling around.
That's something I found to be really inconsistent from one PCC to the next, is the overall weight and also the weight balance.
Right. Where's
I'm
your
trying to
point?
balance on my trigger guard somewhere, you know.
It's so interesting, yeah, because when I had and they're different for every gun too. So like my MPX, when I had it, the balance point was like on the front of the magwell, and it was very much forward. So like, even though, because they didn't have, like, the MPX doesn't really run a buffer system. It's just you know, everything's kind of internal in the body. So that less weight made the balance point forward, which I kind of liked, because it kind of, the gun was always down. I was never, you know, I don't know, it just felt better to me. I got used to that, and so I've tried to make all of my other guns, because that's what I got used to, sort of similar. So, you know, I'll try to have my weight be more front heavy. I'll try to have like a longer, heavier handguard, and try to have a lighter stock. Where Corey puts weight in his stock, I would keep it light because I wanted to keep the same balance as the MPX. But
my thought, I run one-handed a lot. And first off, I gotta say, this is not my Davinci. My Davinci's at Cerakote right now, so this is my backup gun. Sorry guys, but that's what I got. But so I run one-handed a lot, especially if I'm going right to left. And I don't want to run past the muzzle of my gun. I don't want the muzzle to dip because I slip or something, and then I actually end up breaking the 180 by running past it. So I want the weight in the back to kind of keep it, I want it balanced on my hand.
As a movement coach, I have to agree with you. I like the pistol grip balance, more of a center balance rather than front or back. As far as movement goes, I know a lot of guys like to have it more front heavy, more back heavy, and I guess it's personal preference, but I teach a lot of people how to move, and I've seen the most efficient movement with a PCC when it's centered basically on the pistol grip.
Interesting.
That makes sense to me.
So your suggestion to me would be to lighten the front and add weight to the back. It's complete opposite of what I have.
Yeah, well, I mean, almost you want at rest to be favoring the back, because when you stick that 40-round mag in it, I mean, it's going to take some of the weight forward.
Depending on where your center of gravity is, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
So you almost want it favored towards the back, basically.
Right.
Well, that's another suggestion I have.
Well,
for people,
that
is that get yourself
creates
a
the
big
balance
stick.
in the center.
Well, because this is something I talked about. I'm not sure if we talked about it on the podcast, but this is something I've talked with Fralick about when we were shooting a match together, is that, you know, part of the reason that you have the big stick on the PCC is that it will lower the center of gravity and actually hold the dot down even more. So for all the people out there that don't yet have a Taylor freelance extension, I highly suggest that you go out there and get yourself like a plus 20 or a plus 30, because even though you're using 32 rounds max on a stage, the fact that you have 53 or 60, you know, is beneficial to your weight to keep it centered. You know, that's all I have to say too. So that helps too with dot bounce. So there's a lot of things with PCC that are very personal though. Like you were saying, Keto, from one gun to another, it's just what feels good to the person that's running it. And what I could suggest to people is stick with one and practice with that one particular design, and you'll get much better at it.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. With the big stick, people are adding weights into the weight stock because then it kind of centers on the pistol grip.
Right. But, you know, with the mag, it just drops the weight of the gun that much farther down. You know, they're 1.5 feet long. So,
but yeah, again, it's totally personal preference, and whatever you choose for yourself, if you like it and you train with it and you know what the gun is going to do and you're comfortable with that, totally up to you.
Yeah. All right. So this is an interesting podcast for me because I'm, you know, I talk to Corey all the time. So for me to ask Corey questions, we've already discussed it before, but you know, there are certain questions that I can ask on air that are, you know, semi-appropriate, but like one of them is like, so now, and this is one that we haven't really discussed very much. Now that you've like got this Scheel MFG thing going and, you know, you're sponsoring more matches now and it's turned more into a business, you know, has the shooting aspect of it gone away, or like, have you turning your hobby into your job? Have you lost a little bit of fire for the shooting aspect and now it's more just work? Or, I mean, have you been able to find that balance where you're still having fun and you're building your buffer system and selling them and it's just working all around for you? Like what, you know, what's your balance?
So, you know, I kind of shifted the way I think about this over the winter. At Nationals, I was like, all this pressure to perform. I wanted to do better than I did last year. And I put too much pressure on myself. I didn't sleep well. I didn't, you know, it just wasn't a fun time. And then I switched and shot open nationals, and all that I cared about was not DQing and having fun. And it was so much fun that, like, when I got home, I said, it's enough of this pressure. I got to go out and have fun. I'm trying to focus on selling things and really performing at a high level. And I do my best when I'm kind of in that like subconscious thought, not really thinking hard about what I'm shooting. Obviously you have to be prepared to know your stage plan to do that. But when you kind of just let it happen, that's when I tend to do my best anyways.
Well, would you put pressure on yourself for because you had made this buffer system and now you wanted to come out and show people how good it was? Or did you just put pressure on yourself strictly as a competitor? Like, I'm a shooter and I just want to do well. It has nothing to do with my Scheel MFG buffer system. So, or was it a combination of both?
Both, definitely both.
Yeah.
I don't think I put a lot of pressure on performing because of the buffer system, but just the pressure on like the actual social end and the business end. That was, you know, and you just feel like you're actually putting yourself out there to be judged a lot more than when you're just out there to have fun and shoot at your ability, you know?
Yeah, I know that feeling.
Sure.
Okay, so basically when you walk out on the stage with your gun, with your buffer in it, you know everyone's watching you to see how the gun performs and how the buffer
judging you.
and
Yeah,
judging you.
No, that's
Sort of.
why, like, okay,
I
so
feel
in
like
Area
that
6,
falls to a shooter.
you know,
I feel like that falls to the team guys. Like, that's like
yes,
Isaac and me, and like,
yes.
so when I suck at Area 6, I feel bad because now I'm letting Corey down because like my entire job is just to do well. So when you suck, you're not doing your job. Corey's job is to make buffers and have fun now and sell buffers, right? So like,
I think as shooters, we kind of judge the capability of a product based on the person shooting it. Like, oh, he didn't do well. That product is rubbish, which is definitely not the case.
No, and I know that that's not how it works. I'm looking at, did your thing work the whole time? Did it run 100%? Which, we had 6 PCCs at Area 6, all with my buffer system, 4 Davincis and 2 lead stars. And we didn't have one malfunction for, what is it, 300 rounds for an area match?
Probably 350.
So times 6 guns. So that was,
Did you take 4 shots at
gun
every target?
malfunctions. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, Mike's round count is higher than most, actually.
Yeah.
So.
All right, so Mike, I actually have a question for you.
Oh boy.
I have been noticing this trend where you're asking our guests whether or not they're feeling like turning it into a job makes it not fun anymore to shoot. Are you considering leaving your teaching job and making shooting a full-time job?
I don't know. That would have to be, I'd have to get an offer from a company to move somewhere. And like, I don't even know how that would work. I'd essentially have to uproot my entire life. I mean, I have my electrical license, so in New Jersey. So at the end of the day, I could always apply and I could do electrical in any state in this country. But I, between my family being here, I mean, I would like to at some point transition over and move down south and do something in the industry. I was talking to Brian about this at Area 6, Hunter's HD. I'm like, Brian, like, if I came and worked for you, like, Kenzie Fitzpatrick, what does she do? She has her master's in marketing, right? Like, I understand she's one of your sponsored shooters. She can actually help your business. Like, what do you need me to do? Like, fix your lights in your shop? Like, what would I actually do for you that you would pay me a legitimate salary that I could live on? So I don't know. I feel like, I'm not stupid. I feel like I can like do stuff with my hands, but like for me to break into a whole new industry at my age where I'm at now, I just feel like that would be a lot of pressure, or I'd be a big inconvenience to somebody because essentially they'd be paying me more than I should make. So yeah, I'd like to say yes, but that's
a very long way of saying yes. So if you send your CV request for Mike CV at 180firearmstraining@gmail.com, and we'll have his CV sent out to you.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to do that. I love shooting and I love the industry. I love everybody in the industry. To say that my career would be in the shooting industry, I think that would be awesome. And to be somewhere that I can work for a company and shoot all year round, I would, that would almost be like a dream come true. But I'm not that I'm a downer on myself, but like realistically speaking, like, like what could I actually do for somebody I would like, besides just shoot guns. And I don't think that's what anybody really just gets to do. I don't think Max, well, maybe Max Michelle, but there's only like a handful of people that would be like, hey, like my job is I work for SIG, but my job is just to shoot guns. Like I'd have to contribute something else to the company, which, we would have to talk about. I don't know. Yeah, that's a big life change. If I had an offer out here that was like, hey, I had somebody offer me this, I'd probably be talking about it differently, but because there's nothing in the works yet, it's just kind of a pipe dream to me at this point. I'm trying not to get my hopes up too much, but yeah, I'd love to do it. I mean, if Corey wants to rent me a house, I could sleep outside where the CNC is. He could pay me $15 an hour so I could eat food and I could just sleep in the shed. I think that's the way I'm going to break into industry, to be honest,
I just noticed it seemed to be on your mind.
Yeah, I think, look, I love shooting and I love everything about the game. And, if there was any way that I could help, I've even said something to Troy McManus before in a match, like, Troy, at some point, like I'm going to be involved in a management capacity just because I love the game and I want to do something with that. But I don't know what that path is or who that company is or, I don't know.
I have a question for Corey. I mean, at what point, you as a small business owner, at what point do you think, okay, I actually need to hire someone to help me?
I'm at that point now where I need to hire someone to teach me how to learn a CNC machine. But when the work gets here, it's tough. It's like all the work is in it's in spurts where I need 4 guys right now for this project, and then 5 hours later it's gone. So
contracting basically.
Yeah, or I'm just doing it myself right now. I mean, you know, there's things that all the work happens at once at matches, at trade shows, at stuff like that. So, but that's where all the shooters are, and we all work together anyways. And, you know, got a really good relationship with Davinci. We tend to set up our tents together. That's just kind of, you know, grown organically and been good for that. So I don't know.
Have you ever thought of, and I know, okay, well, the thing is though, the YouTube reviewers, I mean, they're not shooters. They don't necessarily get it. But have you ever thought of sending your product to maybe one of them that's willing to try it? Because I mean, yeah, sure, it's entertainment, and if the thing doesn't work, that's going to be bad.
So you're talking like Hickok 45?
Yeah, no, not him, but send it to like a YouTube channel. And
oh, but he's so cute.
Right. Yeah, he could shoot
try this out.
It's just such a niche thing to like when I've invented it, I was like, there's no way that anyone's going to buy this. Who's
if Taurus can sell Taurus curves because they sent a couple to YouTubers, well, I think you can do the same.
When I started my business, I thought, oh, nobody cares about movement and shooting. It's a shooting sport. Nobody's going to care about moving and shooting. And now it's like this whole thing.
I think my problem is I care too much about movement and not enough about shooting. I think I got to turn that back the other way.
I just don't know many people outside of the shooting sports that are willing to spend that kind of money to reduce the recoil on a 9mm rifle that doesn't really recoil that much. To the general public, they're like, this is not a recoiling gun.
Right. But they're not trying to double tap it on the timer as you run through a position at 10 yards.
Right. So that's where the competition people are my market, but the YouTubers maybe aren't. I don't know.
I think you're wrong. I think because, you know, guys are running soft defense ammo to make your soft defense ammo feel like range ammo. That's the slogan you need to do.
Okay. I
mean, it sounds, I mean, you know, just somebody to have a roller delay buffer on their gun. I mean, it sounds cool. So maybe you get people that don't really do competition to buy one or two, but.
Well, and you know, when people go to buy a firearm, if they're even looking at a PCC, whether they're a professional shooter, competition shooter, or just your regular Joe Schmo who sees a PCC in the store and thinks it's cool, they're going to want the best build out. Right. And if your buffer system is recommended as the best build out you can get, then even civilians are going to buy it.
Yeah, I mean, I like it.
I have a dream of like mixing your buffer with that, what's that honey badger? No, not the radial delayed blowback thing. Who makes that?
The CMMG, yep.
Yes, I think mixing that would be pretty interesting. Have you tried that before?
You know, I've had 2 emails this week about that, and I was like, both of them, like, I'll get back to you.
Well, now you've had 3. Like, time to try.
Yeah, someone's gonna have to try one. Yeah.
So it's a radial roller delay blowback.
So it's delayed in the front, delayed in the back. That'll be interesting.
Right, I've looked into it some. It just uses a standard like AR-15 buffer system, not a heavy buffer, not a heavy spring. So it'll probably work.
That does tend to be how your business expands, as you sort of get pushed into it outside your comfort zone because other people are asking for it. Like with Brian Conley with his glasses, I said, you're going to have to expand because I'm going to other countries and I'm bringing your glasses with me. And sure enough, he had to expand. I had to add on my Train Smart class, my advanced class, because I was in South Africa teaching, and the guy said, we want more. So on the 1-hour flight to the next location, I wrote down this curriculum, got outside my comfort zone. Okay, here's the class. Now it's a whole thing, 2 days of training. So I think I
took the advanced class first. I'm putting that on my resume.
Yeah, he was in the very first experimental class. Now it's this whole thing. But yeah, having those emails are great. It does push you outside your comfort zone, and then your business starts to expand. And it's a little bit scary, but usually it works out for the best. If people are asking for it, then it needs to be a thing.
You got to seal up the holes though, where the springs are. You got to seal that up.
You know, it hasn't been an issue at all.
I know, but you see, the thing is though, you go to some Joe Schmo on YouTube.com is going to do a sand test, and he's going to throw in a bucket of sand, and it's going to seize up, and the product's rubbish because of that.
Well, it's not. It's not, again, it's meant for competition where you're going to.
I know, but
if you throw it on the ground in the sand, you're DQ'd. You
I
get
think I'm
decreased.
gonna have some kind of a piece of Kydex that snaps over the holes. So
Tell them to buy a Glock.
You got to put some aluminium on it and weld that stuff up.
The new
electrical
mil
tape
spec
works
buffer.
fine.
It's got to be mil spec, man. You know, got to have it.
Oh yeah, I'm just
Mil
thinking
spec
because
is like the worst possible standard.
yeah,
Let's
it's like
find the
lowest
cheapest,
common
crappiest
denominator.
thing.
Right. Yeah, it just means everything. To me, everything mil spec is usually just loose fitting and all that. So that way, when you get sand in it, it'll kind of just shake itself out. You know, I always my 226 that I shot from SIG felt that way all the time. I mean, it shot every kind of ammo and it always ran because I mean, you could take the slide and you could shake
Rattle
it.
it.
Like, yeah, it's like
Well,
just
I think
here.
so. I think the competition market you touched on that. The competition market is big and it is good to be in it, but at the end of the day, the self-defense market is just so much more massive, not only in the States but worldwide as well. So it's like, well, I mean, we've got close to 3 million gun owners in South Africa, and there's only about like 22,000 people that actually shoot competition.
Well, the PCC
Yeah.
is great to market to families. It's
Right.
a great starter gun.
Why is that? Because it's so practical. I just want to know.
Because it's
Troll,
so
Mike.
easy to shoot
Troll.
and it's so easy to learn all of the basics. And you know, the muzzle is so far out in front of you. With a handgun, it's so much easier to point it in an unsafe direction. With a PCC, it's a lot easier to point it in a safe direction. And if you're training someone, it's a lot easier to just, oh, stop that muzzle right there.
Yep.
And also
Right.
firing a 5.56 rifle indoors without ear protection is not fun.
Oh, so yeah. So you know, now that you say that, let's so back to the recoil thing for you, Grant, because now you said 5.56. I thought about my buddy's tune 5.56 literally doesn't move when I pull the trigger. But that PCC, so you say that it doesn't move at all. The PCC moves a lot more than a 5.56.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you shot a 5.56. I know you said you shot PCC, but like, you know, it's got, you know, yeah, it is flat shooting, but it is not the easiest thing to do, because when you're trying to win, you got to be going like almost balls to the wall. So like, you know, you can't be taking one, feel the trigger reset, then two, and now you're hitting two alphas. Like, it's pop. So, you know, the difference in the, you know, muzzle rise by that much in your dot, I mean, it's the difference between 2 alpha or alpha Charlie or even alpha Delta if it's really moving.
That's like comparing 40 to 45.
Yeah, in a way. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like Corey's system definitely takes some of that twang off your shoulder. So like, to me, it doesn't feel like it's hitting you as hard. And if it's not hitting your shoulder as hard, then you don't have as much stuff coming back, which means that you're going to have less flip up in the front. So the softer you can get this transition to be on your buffer from back to front, the less flip you're going to have every time it hits the back of the tube. And like,
that's why I like this product, because it's like the person who bought the 9mm thing for home defense or whatever, because it was quiet, doesn't like the jump. So now I can just basically screw this on and lessen that.
Yeah, what is the installation like, Corey?
So you remove your old tube from the gun and just put this buffer and tube on kind of all at once. I've got a little YouTube video out there to do it. It takes, 10 minutes or so. If you're comfortable with removing a buffer tube.
What do you need? You need
what's your
castle
YouTube
knot wrench, right? Like,
a castle knot wrench. Yep.
What else? And then that's
it.
Yeah, you do the rest by hand. It takes a little bit to set it. Like, you gotta. So essentially, you put your, you take your tube off of your gun now, and then you put your upper back on your lower. So now you have your rifle without a buffer tube on it, and then you kind of screw the tube into the back of the gun until you feel the buffer bottom out on the bolt, and then you like turn it off a half a turn or whatever it is until you can get those things to line up. And then you're pretty much there. Then you lock down the castle nut, and it's set properly. And then you got to just make sure you put in the 3 light springs or whatever you're going to run in it for your ammo, which, like Corey was saying, I mean, I think that's the coolest part, like it literally
basically
does
hand tight and then back.
Like, what do you have to do? And I'm not trying to, again, JP makes a great product, but like, what would you have to do to change from using a 115 grain bullet to a 147 grain bullet with a JP buffer? Like, you're going to have to either have all stainless or all tungsten. Right. Well, now with Corey's system, all you do is you pop out the buffer and you just change the springs, and that's done. Like, you're not.
And I mean, the other thing is they're going to run on either setup. Like, the ammo's going to run 100% on either setup. Now, changing to a steel challenge really light, that's different. You might have to actually change springs to get it to run 100%. But the
So if you're
difference
switching
between
the
one
game you're
factory
playing.
ammo and another factory ammo, they're going to run. It's just going to be the feeling that you're really tuning for.
All right. Well, I mean, that's kind of the same thing with the JP buffer. I mean, I ran an all steel one, 115s and 147s. It does run. It feels a little different though. So, I mean, it's just much easier. And to me, like, I would never take my JP buffer apart and change the weights individually. So, like, I always had a second JP buffer. So I had this one that was light and then this one that was heavy. And with Corey's, all you need is a bag of springs and you can change whatever you want. And you know, even if someone's like, oh, well, you know, I want to shoot your gun, but I only have these factory loads. Like, okay, well, no problem. Give me 1 second. Like, there you go. And now it's set up for your stuff. Perfect.
Corey, where can people find this YouTube video?
Yeah.
Oh, Corey Scheel 3-gun, I believe, is my YouTube channel. I've got like 3 videos up, so not very
Well, you have a website, right?
Yes. Scheel MFG is the website, and it is on the website.
Okay.
And for anyone overseas, I have a Shooters Connection is selling my stuff, and so they are able to do all the overseas shipping for me because I didn't have all of that in place yet. So they're just kind of handling that for me right now.
Okay. Well, we should get you in touch with the IPSC store and see if they want to do something with you.
Yeah,
that'd be
that's
great.
a great place to be too.
Because those guys are doing some PCC stuff a little bit.
Well, I mean,
Be
PCC
fun.
is obviously one of the, except for carry optics, it's you know, the fastest growing division in the game because it's brand new. So, you know,
But
everybody
Corey-
kind of has a gun that they can take from production to carry optics, you throw a red dot on it and call it a day or whatever, and you know, or you know, whatever. But PCC, it's a completely new platform, and you know, I feel like it's just getting started. So I feel like Corey's
Right.
had a great time with this product because it's something that people can. It's only been around really for what 3-4 years now with USPSA.
Yeah.
And IPSC. How is IPSC been around the same amount of time, Grant?
No, it was newer to
Uh,
IPSC.
So okay,
Yeah.
so it's only what, like 1 or 2 years newer. I mean, nothing.
Yeah, I
crazy.
think it was 1 year ahead, basically. I think
Yeah.
around about there.
Yeah, you should talk to Keita after this podcast about that. Maybe you guys can get up with Yana and Dimitri on that.
Yeah, they're awesome. Awesome
Yeah.
people. Family-owned business in Estonia, IPSC store.
Cool.
So, Corey, do you have any companies you would like to mention besides your own? That you're working with?
You know, Davinci, we've already mentioned. Coda Evolution. They're big help. And we were talking about the lighting in the front end of the rifles, and that's how I was able to really do it on my Davinci. They make a very nice carbon fiber front end
Ooh.
that has aluminum barrel nuts. So
Ooh.
that's where a lot of the weight in your front ends are. Even your like lightweight extruded aluminum ones have usually a steel barrel nut, and that's adding quite a bit.
Really?
So I was able to take, I think it was 6 ounces off the front of my Davinci, and then that let me take 6 ounces out of the stock to maintain my balance point. And so that was a big thing for this year. My Davinci is much lighter than my other guns.
Okay. How has that aluminum held up for you?
It's been great. I probably have, I don't know.
And it only gets better with
15,000 rounds
time.
through it.
Only gets better with time too. You know? Are you talking about the buffer tube? Is that what you're talking about?
Oh,
The
I
nut.
thought we were talking about the barrel nut
Oh,
on my
barrel nut.
Coda,
Oh.
but yeah, the buffer tube's been fine too.
Well, speaking of the buffer tube, what's the highest round count you've actually put through one of your buffer tubes?
So
Probably mine.
this gun has got probably 15,000 through it. I don't know what Mike's has. Mike probably has
Probably
the second
similar.
highest.
Similar to that. Yeah, I mean, I shot that gun since you put it in Ohio. I shot it. It's the only Davinci I had. So now I have 2, but I am still breaking the other one in. But I can tell you what, that buffer tube, it's a little tough when you first get it, but it truly does just get better and better and better over time. I haven't had it break or crack or anything yet, but I mean, it is almost like butter. It's like glass smooth at this point. So
The little edge just kind of rolls over on the aluminum, and it kind of wears in.
right. So imagine,
Okay, so you're
imagine the tube, imagine the brand new tube, and you cut, you know, it's whatever thick, call it an 1/8 inch thick, right? And it's probably less than that. But then you punch hole through it, so now it's got like a little square edge, and the roller kind of sticks into the pocket. So over time, it beats down that corner, and it just gets smoother and smoother and smoother, and it's
Okay. So you're not actually seeing a lot of like damage onto the aluminum receiver with that steel roller going in it on
No, because it's round.
Well, it makes its own track. So if you take the buffer system out and you look down there, I mean, you could see where the roller goes, but that's part of what breaking it in and making it smooth.
Oh, even the MP5 rollers eventually wear into the steel receiver after a couple and tens of thousands of rounds. So that's why I was asking the question.
Well, steel is very different from aluminum. What was that, Corey?
And the different aluminums are different too. I found that out, that your 6061 aluminum is much softer, much more likely to
it's more
to roll
malleable
over than the 7075 that I'm using.
Okay, so you're actually making it out of 7075 aluminum.
Yes, yes. I had a couple of 6061 tubes, and that's not where you want to be. So I learned my lesson there. But no, 7075 is where it's at.
Yeah, that steel is not malleable compared to the aluminum, so it's going to take the shape basically you need it to take, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so this is interesting now that you guys said that. I don't think we've touched on this, but like how many prototypes exploded before you got one that worked? Right, material that was like, oh, this is what it needs to be.
That, and I was thinking about that too, because I mean, buffer tubes kind of right against your cheek, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna put this thing right against my face and try it. But, no real like catastrophic failures to anything like that.
Like how many iterations until you got to what you're selling?
Basically, how big of the box of destroyed buffers is it?
Right.
There's only probably 8 or 10 buffers that aren't any good, but I've got a big box of wrecked tubes. I had to get the hole in the right spot and all of that. Yeah, I probably went through 20 or 40 tubes.
Well, it doesn't look like you needed any facial reconstruction surgery or anything, so it must have gone okay.
Yeah, it's
well, the beard is covering some scars that you don't know.
No, there's no risk there.
Good stuff. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, Corey. Is there anything you didn't mention that you wanted to bring up?
Not that I can really think of. We've got one on Davinci that Brian Conley's running around in his Hunter's HD van.
Oh,
so
yeah.
If anyone's looking to test one, he's got one available for testing or use during a match or whatever. That he's at like 150 matches a year or something. So
right, we got to get him on here.
But there's one on the Davinci gun that he's got. So if anyone's looking to try one out that I'm not around or Mike's not around or anyone, check it out on his truck.
Yeah, Brian keeps backup guns in his van just in case your gun breaks during a match.
Yeah,
he's got glasses you can use, no cost to you to use them during a match. And he has a match discount during the match.
Honestly, why I love the sport. I mean, think about any time that anybody's ever showed up to a match and they were missing something. You have like 12 people offering you like, oh, you're missing a holster? I have these. Do they fit? Like, it's like everybody's always willing to help everybody out. But yeah, I mean, always keep that in mind, guys. And always keep it in mind too, if you ever wanted to try out a gun that Brian has, you don't even have to bring yours. As long as you set it up with Brian, like, hey, I really wanted to shoot this kind of gun, he'll let you try them. So, feel free to go up and talk to Brian about that, and he'll be more than happy to give them you for the day. So.
And the same with me and Davinci, we all carry spare guns. So, if anything happens at a major that I'm at or anything, you need to borrow a gun, even if something doesn't happen, you just want to try it. I've got a spare you can take and use for the match. So,
last year,
Corey,
TSA.
What's next? Sorry.
Last year, TSA broke my. Stop talking, Grip. No, you go.
Okay, you go.
Husband and wife.
Okay, I'm gonna go. Ready?
You go.
You go.
So last year at Nationals, TSA broke a bolt off of my holster, and I just emailed Ghost Holster USA, and they mailed me all the replacement parts plus extras that I might need and any tools I might not have had with me. And
sucks.
Yeah, right. So it was fixed the day before I shot Nationals. They overnighted it to me. Like, this sport is so amazing. All the companies that work with our sport, everyone is so helpful and giving, because we've all needed help at some point. So we all give back whenever we can.
Yeah.
Okay, Grant, what would you like to say?
Any psychiatrists out there? I need mental help. I don't know if
Mike needs that. No, Corey, I was going to ask, what's your next match you're shooting? And in the hopes, if you say Dragon's Cup, to make Mike feel that.
Actually, in 3 days, Mike and I are meeting up and we're shooting this PSA shootout. So it's this like falling steel match in Hershey, PA. Each stage is like 30 pieces of falling steel, and I don't know. That's pretty big in like the Northeast. So I'm shooting that on Saturday, and then we've got the Delmarva section match on Sunday.
Which they called Area 8, but it's not because they're just butthurt that they don't have Area 8 at that club anymore this year. So the guys that are running that match have now called it the Area 8 sectional.
Right. I had like 5 people ask me like, "Oh, are you shooting Area 8 next week?" And I'm like, "You're gonna be disappointed. That's a section match, not an area match."
I was confused about that. I thought it was Area 8 too.
Well, so the last 2 years, Area 8's been run at Delmarva, been run at what's it called? Shadowhawk. Yeah, in West. Yeah, so now Area 8 this year, at least this year, as far as I know, is in Atalani Rod and Gun Club in Pennsylvania. So now Shadowhawk is running a sectional instead of doing the Area 8 match, but they just had to throw it in the other. We're all friends up here, so they made sure they named their match the Area 8 sectional just to get.
That's pretty funny.
So this weekend it's that. We just did Area 6. I'm a stage sponsor at Area 8 and Area 5. The Buckeye Blast in May, the Kentucky section match, Western PA section match, and the Battle for the North. Those are the matches I'm sponsoring anyways. I think we're going to go to South Carolina with Davinci here in a couple weeks, and New Mexico later in the summer. So those are like kind of Davinci matches that I'll be at.
I'm jealous about that one.
Awesome.
That's on my birthday weekend. It's also the first week of school. So see, now if I was in the gun industry, I would be attending. But the fact that it's my first week of school and I have to take off for 5 days for nationals the month after, I cannot attend New Mexico. So yeah, my birthday weekend, they're all going to New Mexico, Kita, and I'm staying home because I can't. I'm trying to be responsible. Jesus. Yeah, I got to get out of this one. I got to get into the industry. I really do. So
Corey, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, and thank you. Thanks for being you, man. I've known you for a long time, and I just want to say thanks for always being an awesome dude. And I'm glad that you chose me to help you out doing this whole Scheel buffer system thing. And thank you for letting me be the guy because I'm really enjoying the buffer. I think you did a great job on that. So I'll see you.
Well, I think you're helping me more than I'm helping you. So thank you.
But yeah, Corey, thanks for coming on. And yeah, I really think this is the first time I've seen your product, and I actually think it's really interesting.
Well, thank you, Grant. Hopefully I get to shoot with you sometime.
Dragon's Cup, come on, join. Come on.
Okay. We'll see.
I hate all of you.
Bye, guys.
We'll see you.
Yeah.